Looking to switch careers and enter the exciting world of real estate in Alaska? Look no further. My name is Jerry Royce, and I've been teaching Alaska sales pre-licensing classes for over 25 years and taught them over 400 times. You have great access to it and spend hundreds of hours helping people be able to pass this exam. Over 1,200 people have passed their test here in Alaska to get their real estate career started. We offer a full range of classes as well. We look forward to helping you and walking you through and making this an easy process.
I know in the last 6 months, this house went for 180, this house went for 180, this house went for 180, and I say, what's my house worth? Probably 180. Pretty simple to do. Anytime I vary it in any way, I've got to make adjustments. Could be what we see here in terms of some of the adjustments. There could be an adjustment on time. Market's going up real fast. What something sold for 3 months ago, if it's going up 4% a month, which is what Vegas was doing, they'd have to put a 12% adjustment because you might have paid $200 for it 3 months ago, but today that same house is now worth $220 or jumps up 12%. Same thing could be true in the other direction. When the marketplace was falling apart in Anchorage back in '86, values were dropping 4% a month. In some cases, more than that. It sold for $200 4 months ago. It ain't going to sell for $200 now. It might be down in the 180, 175 range. So we could have adjustments for price. Here we see an adjustment based on location. Distance to the beach. We see garages could be adjusted. If one has a single car, one has a double car, we're going to make adjustments for that. We have an adjustment here for view, where one is superior to the other. Square footage adjustments could occur as well. As I mentioned before, the more expensive houses of the comps that we're using, we're going to adjust down. The less expensive houses, we're going to adjust up to see, is this sales price justified based on what's going on in the neighborhood? So that's what the appraiser is looking for. Now the cost approach on page 157 is an area where you're going to see another math question. Fairly basic, fairly straightforward, easy to get there, but the steps in the cost approach are, first off, we estimate the current cost of constructing the building. Second step, we estimate the amount of accrued depreciation resulting from physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, and external obsolescence. And we're not adjusting based on tax depreciation. We're talking about a decrease in value. Now, to further explain those three concepts, look at the bottom of the page. What is physical deterioration? It's wear and tear from use. It's worn out. You've worn out the building, dry rot, changes in temperature, etc. We know that houses wear out, particularly in climates like Fairbanks, where a 100-year-old house has been through some stuff with this 50 below and 90 above, and houses wear out over a period of time. Functional obsolescence, on the other hand, is based on poor architectural design, lack of modern facilities, out-of-date equipment. When we're looking at functional obsolescence, the example that you could see would be where you have a house that's got a 60 amp service where a 100 amp service is necessary. Basically, when Grandma and Grandpa built houses, they didn't need that much electricity. They didn't have the surround sound systems, the 4 computer systems, the appliances that we have today. So they had a little extension cord coming in from Golden Valley Electric. Whereas today, we got all this neat jazzy stuff. And so that's not enough juice coming into the house. So if I got a house that's got a 60 amp service sitting next to houses that have 100 amp services, it's outdated. And I may have to put the extra electricals in, but I may not recover the cost because people expect they're going to have adequate electricity when they buy a house. That's an example of functional obsolescence. We can see another example at the Board of Realtors. 2 doors down. I've taught in that room plenty of times. At the Board of Realtors room, there's all these posts all over the place. So when I'm doing a class, I'm doing this all day long, trying to get eye contact with people because I'm ducking around these posts. I've gone to lots of classrooms where those posts exist. You can go down to Las Vegas now, put 10,000 people in a room, and there ain't post one because they're designing things differently than they did before. So those posts would be another example of outdated. And then external obsolescence or external locational obsolescence. This is basically a deterioration of value based on something you don't control. It's a smoking manufacturing plant that just opened up down the road, spewing noxious gases. That's going to have an impact on the value of your property, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you want to understand these 3 different types of depreciation. We know we subtract the depreciation, because that goes back to the top, the cost approach. So we estimate the amount of depreciation. We then deduct the depreciation from the estimated construction cost of the new building. We then add the land value back in to arrive at the total property cost. So that's understand that process, but now let's put it into play on what you're going to see on the test. They'll say, to use this cost approach, they'll say you've got a 1,000 square foot house, and we're going to figure out what the value of this house is. So you've got a 1,000 square foot house. It costs $100 per square foot to replace this building. So you go, I say 1,000 times 100 bucks, so it's 100,000 to replace the building. Now I've got to subtract the depreciation. Now they don't expect you to get real complicated in this. In terms of the accrued depreciation, they'll say you've got 2 rooms of carpet that are worn out. That then represents the depreciation. Now they'll say you've got one room that's 9 by 12, you've got another room that's 10 by 12. The carpet costs $16 a square yard. Now, what I got to do is there's a series of mathematical questions that I have to go through in order to figure out what's it going to cost me to put the carpet in those 2 rooms. Now, they're going to say an installation cost. They don't get that complicated. Just what would it cost in terms of the carpet? I know one room is 10 by 12. What I got to do in order to figure out how much it's going to cost me for the carpet is I've got to translate those linear dimensions, 10 by 12, into, first off, square footage dimensions. So how do I do that? Yeah, well, first off, I've got to figure out how many square feet. So I've got linear dimensions. What do? I heard it. You multiply 10 by 12. Okay, 120 square feet. Then I got to divide that, because I don't sell carpet in square feet. I've got to divide it by what number to get square yards? Sometimes people go 3. No, 9. 9 is right. Because a square yard is 3 feet by 3 feet, we know that there are 9 square feet in a square yard. So I've got to take the 120 and divide it by 9 to tell me how many square yards I have in the room. Then I have to multiply that by the $16 or whatever the number they give me per square yard. And that tells me how much it costs to replace the carpet in that room. Then I got to do the same thing with the next room. Then I got to add those 2 together, and that tells me how much the carpet is going to cost altogether, and I subtract that from the $100,000 because that represents the accrued depreciation. I then add the land value back in. Let's say they say it's 35 grand. I take the 100 grand that I got from saying 1,000 square feet times $100 a square foot, subtract the 2 rooms of carpet, let's say it's 800 bucks. I add the land value back in, voila, that's the cost approach. Not real complicated, mathematical formulas, pretty easy to conceptualize. You might see 1 or 2 that deal with that particular equation. So none of these math equations are that difficult. It's not to say you don't need a little bit of practice. We've got plenty of practice questions in here, but we're not talking trigonometry here or calculus, or we're not even getting into geometry and algebra. This is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, because if it got more complicated than that, we wouldn't have any real estate licensees in the state because nobody could pass the test. Besides, you're all going to use calculators anyways, and spreadsheets and computer programs that are going to calculate all this stuff out.
We have additional parts for you to help you study to be able to pass the real estate exam regardless of where you're taking the test.